Show my support for the rural community. No one is tougher and more worthy of an investment than rural communities. In all through America, the rural communities are often disregarded and not invested in. They're forgotten. Rural communities have been expected to carry their own hospitals and schools. Can't possibly support those. And they're doing it on agricultural money. Here's my question. Act 181. Why did you guys need to give up any rights on your land? Why weren't you guys allowed to enter the property the same way everybody else does in those situations using the Emergency Act? They really can't afford to lose any more rights. They don't have enough rights to it somehow as it is. They're barely hanging on. The one thing they don't have right now is a cash windfall. Most people are in a better financial situation than the Vermonters. So giving up their land rights right now, when they're not in the monetary position to defend those, should they be in some situation where those are challenged, is not the right idea. The Vermonters have to keep all the land rights they possibly can, and they have to give themselves more. Never, ever give up any of your land rights. You know why? Even though you guys have Vermonters right now on the boards, and that might be safe, it might not be safe at any time somebody lands here or the next shyster lands here and wants to be the next king of Vermont. You grab a whole monopoly set of houses, that man will then become the most powerful man here. And he will be popular, and people will want to be with him and do business with him. And that guy will most likely end up on the board. And then he's going to put his friends on the board, right? They may believe that they know what's best for Vermont, but they don't understand how different it is here. And because they didn't grow up here, they're not going to know how wrong they are. You're not going to get someone with a pedigree and teach this and have him come and run this. You're not going to find it. It only comes from within a person that was raised here. You have to know what this life is like because it's so different. You can't look at Vermont the same way. Vermonters can't afford to give up any land rights, even the politicians. It's too dangerous. You don't have enough money right now. Anybody could walk in here and take over. Who's going to end up on the boards? It's the people who have more money, right? The Vermonters won't be represented there. So how will they then know who those people are, what they're about, and what they will ask them to do on their land? And then the Vermonters won't be able to say no, because the money people will be in charge, and they will decide what they do on their land. But what if it's a bad guy? What if it's somebody that has some other motive? You can't give up any land rights. You can't give up anything else. Vermonters have to gain more rights. They should be given more control. They should be represented on the boards. But if I was not just an armchair person that had an opinion that nobody wants to hear, I would put farmers on every single board, the old timers that are still here, that we're lucky enough to have. Because the one thing you know is the farmer is going to look out for everyone. You know how you know? Because when they didn't know this year whether or not the president was going to fund SNAP for the children, and the farms were going under, the farmers, while they were drowning, stepped up and said, don't worry, if this really goes down, we'll be there. We'll provide the food. That's how you know. They won't leave you out there. They won't abandon the other Vermonters. They'll be thinking about the children eating. They'll be thinking about the elderly. They'll make sure everybody's okay. Those men will never exist again. They should have always been on the boards. You have to represent them on the boards. Keep in mind they're losing everything, and they don't even know how they're going to have it for themselves. But they're assuring everybody that they'll make sure that they're taken care of. It sounds fatherly, and that's how you know. That's how they look out for the people, in a fatherly way, in a protective way, kind of like Governor Scott. He's always fair. He's not owned by one side or the other. He cares about the Vermonters. He looks out for them in a protective way, in a family way, and that's who you need on the board, and that's who you need under the Golden Dome. And all of the officials, they're all on the same team. They all need the same result. They may differ in how they think they can get there, but they all look out for each other as a family. That's the way to take care of Vermont and the Vermonters. And the business people who are coming here need that as well, because it brings them to the same conclusion and the same end result, which will be success. You need the Vermonters. You don't have Vermont without the Vermonters. It's so hard to explain why in very few words. When something happens and you find out as a lawmaker that a law that you were working on for whatever reason doesn't turn out to protect the Vermonters in the way that you planned, You're the lawmakers. You're the Vermonters. You are in charge. You can just throw it out. You have to protect yourself. You're allowed to do that. You should do that. You're entitled to do that for the Vermonters and for the people who are coming to Vermont that want to build, that want to develop the economic outlook. It's going to work for the Vermonters and the people who want to invest in Vermont to do it this way. That's why I like Phil Scott, because he's a clear head. You would realize later, when everybody cools down on certain topics, that he was making the right decision, and you could have hurt yourself by going in a certain direction. You don't really know until later. You don't know why certain lawmakers or why the governor is making certain decisions. But you have to trust it, knowing that he's a person that's not owned by one side or the other. It is very encouraging to know that, and it's a very rare thing to have somebody running the place like that. You're going to have people that will criticize on one side or the other a governor like that, because he's not owned. They're going to be mad that he's not on one side or the other. I'm very happy to hear that he was running again because of the fact that I know he's like that. And it's okay for you guys to ask for more than you do. You don't ask for enough. You've not been given the investments that many of the states have. The only reason why you're in this position is because of that. And maybe all agricultural areas have not gotten that investment. You have every right to ask for more than you're getting, because you really are under a lot of weight and a lot of pressure, and you're being asked to carry too many things for an area. They don't have those kinds of resources. They don't have that money circulating. They have no way of getting to that money, so they can't produce more from what they have. They can only just try to carry everything, and it's way too much on their backs. That's why Vermont is not as successful as they could be. That's why they're always struggling. It's not because Vermont is failing or because they're not doing as much work as everybody else, because they're doing more. If you came here and saw it, you wouldn't believe it. Most people wouldn't live like this. They wouldn't choose to. But that's how much this land means to them, the land. They're barely hanging on with bleeding fingers. They can't take a chance of losing any rights. All these people know more than me. They're all lawmakers. But what I do know is the Vermonters and what they need to protect and what they've lost and the pressure they're under. They have to hold on to every single land right they can. And there's no reason to be mad at each other over it. You're all trying to find ways of protecting your land. And hopefully soon, America will protect your land for you, because it's worth it, and that's the future of your economy, and it's going to add to the success of the economy of America. Vermont just needs the investment, and they will come out at the forefront as a major player in America's economic development and their success, because the Vermonters have what it takes. They just need a windfall of cash and not to give up any land rights, because right now they don't have that cash, and it's the only thing that has kept them under, and it's the only thing that has made them vulnerable to everything. And then when things happen to them, they can't afford the lawyers to fight it when people leave them in shambles. So they need the windfall that every other area has gotten. They need you to invest in their children, in their children's education. Show them the same dedication that they've shown America. The farmers here that could have gone into the stock market, but they've chosen to give this, to be that for us. There is nothing like that now. These men that will take from themselves to make sure a community has it. We don't know anybody like that now. People are pillaging everybody. They're ripping fillings out of the casket and selling the gold. People will do anything. And these men, they will always be overlooked. They will make sure there's money left at the end. Any lawmaker that may be criticized based on how they spent money in emergencies, they're all looking out for the best for all Vermonters. They're all trying to just make their way through disaster after disaster, unpredictable disasters that they can't afford to cover and they can't afford to recover from. And they're not doing these disasters. They're being brought in one thing after the other, not just weather. They need to be given that leeway. Everybody's trying. Right now, you can't afford to take that chance. Even the lawmakers. Soon, hopefully, America will protect your land, and you won't ever have to worry about it again. That's probably where most of your money goes, because you're the only ones protecting it. You guys are the only ones looking out for Vermont. People just overlook Vermont. They forget about it. And Vermonters never complain. They're carrying it all themselves, Act 181 was born out of the need of Vermonters to protect their land and to protect each other. Whatever the disaster is, whatever the emergency, don't get scared enough to ever overlook that you're giving up those land rights. Because you guys have to protect yourselves. You know why? We're going to need you in America very soon. When everything hits the grid, you're the people that America needs to be there. You can't lose your land rights. Maybe Act 181 is a temporary thing in emergency situations. Make sure there's no room in there that anybody can hurt you guys. The legislatures are part of you. Everybody's fighting for the same thing. Vermont deserves an investment from the federal government. That's the main thing. The main problem here that would solve almost every single thing that ever happened in Vermont is money. Money, money, and money. Investments in the education, investments in the healthcare system that they have to improvise with because they've never been given that investment. They don't have hospitals, so they have to do home care and different variations. So America has to cover those things because they don't have any other way. They would be happy to take the hospitals, which I think would be a wonderful investment for agricultural communities. But until they have those, you have to cover the other ways they have to go about it. What are they supposed to do? They need health care, right? If you're not giving them hospitals, they're not complaining about it, but they're going to do other variations to provide care for the Vermonters. And America has to be there to cover those. What other choice do they have? For part 2 of the audio, see my profile. Part 2. What other choice do they have? But when you don't live like this, you don't understand how every dime is a damn gift. Where is the money for agriculture? Agriculture is the future. Agriculture is the MVP. The farmer is the main player. He is the most valuable person we have right now. Of everything. There won't be anyone more valuable than the farmer. No one. We need him. Even Elon Musk. If something hits us in the grid or whatever, you don't know. You may not have access to your bank. Maybe the bad guys will take over. They'll just go in the banks. Maybe there won't be banks. Maybe it'll be the great equalizer and we'll all be poor. And where are we going to get the food? Where everyone's going to be walking into Vermont. It will be the only one that has what they need to survive. And Vermont is in a position to do it. They can do it while they're sleeping, and they do it better than anyone can do it. They can provide it, they can grow it better than anyone. And once they start, they have every right to grow all the way across their land. They pay taxes, so they all own that land. And each one of the vocal Vermonters should own a piece of the business. The families that always lived here, the families that grew up here, the families that have been enslaved for 2 generations to live up to a rich man's taxes, who don't even know they're living differently than the rest of the world. And they do a statewide grow. Those people should own part of that business so they could never be weeded out. But don't give up your land rights. Don't give up anything that could be construed as land rights, because you have to get more rights. That's the point. If you guys are lost, they have no Vermont. It's lost. If you guys are lost, they lose Vermont. So you have to protect yourself, because you're the only one that will protect Vermont and keep it as the diamond that it is. There is no other one in America. It's the only one left. And they're primed and ready and in perfect position because they took care of the land the way they did. And they preserved it when the rest of America turned into an industrial wasteland. Vermont is the only one that will be able to help us when what's coming is coming, whatever it is, the unpredictability of it. Okay? Shaw's might not be available in 2 weeks like it was last time. What if it's never coming back? The only one that's going to be worth anything is the farmer. And we're losing the farmers. The farmers are leaving. They think they owe taxes. But the farmers have been overpaying taxes for 2 generations. Technically, they don't owe anything. The Vermonters don't owe anything. Any of the Vermonters that have a tax bill right now, they were doubled, tripled, and quadrupled taxed. They were paying the taxes of like Elvis Presley on a working man's dollar. So the Vermonters don't owe money. They're actually owed money because of the 2 generations they lost to this, because nobody ever fixed the law. Did Vermonters need to give up any rights in Act 181? Anything where somebody can tell you what to do on your land, even though you know who's on the select board now, you might not know who's on the select board in a month from now. When somebody comes here and buys up a whole stream of properties like we had last time. My question is, can't the Vermonters gain the same access to land using the emergency clause instead of enacting a brand new act where they have to give up land rights? That's my question. And I'm on the side of the rural Vermonters. We have to protect the farmers the future. The Vermonters are the only ones that can keep Vermont the way it is. They can't lose money and they can't lose rights. They need an investment, they need more rights, and they need more local control because they're the only ones that will take care of them. Nobody else does it. Vermont gets just lost and they get forgotten. That's why they've never gotten the investment they need. I'm working on this blog that I told you guys about for like the last year. And it sucks. And I'm going to put it on soon. But it's all about the Vermonters and how they live and what's been happening here all these years that's been keeping them under. Vermonters are ready to go out in front. They will take off and be way ahead of all of us. But the Vermonters, what people don't realize, are behind a huge 8-ball. And they're under tremendous weight of past disasters and everything else. All the problems they have, all the things they're supporting, and they were expected to support, which they should have never been. All of the ways they protect their land, which they should have never had to. Their land should be protected, and I believe it will be when you see what they will do with it. And the Vermonters can grow all the way across the state and start growing and producing and being the main drivers of natural medicine, which will get everybody on the planet, including our children, off of synthetic drugs. That's the answer. We keep them off of drugs by drugs not existing, by every kid only learning how to grow natural medicines. So they never take a single Advil. Just like food, the Vermonters do everything naturally, and medicine should be the same way. They're the best at that. Cannabis was only one. Natural medicine, Eastern medicine, it's a huge industry. There's no health insurance for it, so every single dollar is cash in the pockets of the people who are growing it. And once you start growing it, you are going to be a huge industry because nobody does it better than you. And you could do it all the way across the state on all the empty land that you all pay taxes for. And you'll be owners of it together. Vermont water in a glass bottle that everyone will buy.